Rita.
Hey, CW, how are you?
Great, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Rock and Roll Confessional. I want to commend you on your on that fancy mask you have on, the bedazzled mask.
This one?
No, the one you... I'm actually trying to talk about the one we had yesterday.
I got this one today.
Yeah, I saw that one, but I'm talking about the fancy bedazzled mask you're wearing with...
Oh, that one.
Like
yes,
Bruce.
I'm glad. Bruce and the big band. Yes, sequined. Very nice.
Very cool. Did you bedazzle it yourself?
No, but I actually went online and found out how to get it from somebody who was, painstakingly putting all those little bedazzles together.
Wow. So that must have cost you a fortune. Those real diamonds?
Yeah, as far as you know. That's why I'm not wearing it.
That's why it's back in the vault.
I just take it out for show.
$50 million mask.
Shh, don't tell anybody. Hey, welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll Confessional. I'm Rita Wild.
And I'm CW.
And this show, we're talking with one of the original members, lead singer and guitarist of the band, The Alarm. His name is Mike Peters. Very charismatic guy. Mike has carried on the band's name since the original breakup in 1991, and he is releasing 3 albums, including Stream, Hurricane of Change.
We talk with Mike about those new albums, along with his battle with cancer, having that twice, the band's first U.S. tour with U2, his thoughts of Springsteen, and how his life has changed since he departed from the original band back in 1991.
Without further ado, Mike Peters of The Alarm.
How you doing, guys? You okay?
We're doing okay. It's called Rock and Roll Confessional. So is there something that you would like to confess?
Yeah, I like rock and roll.
That's not much of a confession.
Yes, it is.
It is for musicians who've been playing as long as I have, because often they don't like it anymore, but they do it because it's their job, but I still love it.
Well, you've proven that with all the albums and all the music you've put out in the last 30 plus years.
Yes, indeed. And you still continue to love it. What is your motivation? I mean, it's like, here you are, a guy that continues to love touring. A lot of people don't anymore. But you love touring. Your mind is always working. You're coming up with all these great ideas.
Yeah, I think, necessity is the mother of invention. And I come alive when I'm playing music. That if I was just had a regular job, I was a computer operator before music came along in the 70s. And if that was what my life was like, I'd be setting up the band at the weekend. I'd be putting up the PA and playing the guitars. And so I still want to play music, and that's what keeps me going forward. It's just the fuel for my life. And I've had points in life where it's been under threat. Where I've had to live with cancer and face that down, and that's just made me appreciate. I want to play music more. The lockdown right now, I just so want to get out there and play a gig and meet the fans.
Well, you've kind of been doing that with your weekend nights out with you and Jules, which has been a real treat for all your fans.
Yeah, it's been again, that happened out of necessity. When the lockdown actually happened in Britain, we were supposed to be playing that night. That was our first gig of our British set of dates, and everyone was excited. It was sold out. Everyone was looking forward to it. Next minute, we had to postpone it and put it back to the end of the year. And but we thought, well, we can't just leave those people high and dry and pretend it's not happened. So we decided to go out on the internet, and we had some music videos that we've made that we wanted to share that were due to come out. So we thought we'll play them and we'll keep everyone upbeat and happy. And we thought it would just be for one night only. That's why we called it the Big Night In. It wasn't the Big Nights In. It was one. And then the reaction was incredible. And it gave us something to focus on and to look forward to, and a chance to communicate with our audience, who part family to us anyway. And so to have all those comments coming in, thousands of them on the Facebook page every time we go out live, it's become a whole other way of living and communicating and playing music. And it's made Saturday night something I really look forward to. I get to play a gig, get to talk to all the fans. It's been fantastic. And we've learnt lots of ways of keeping things fresh and exciting. And, we never have had this time to look back like we've been able to on the history of the Alarm and share videos from the beginnings of the band and tell stories that we wouldn't have time for normally. And so there's some of the blessings, and all the original Alarm members have been on the show, all members from our history have come on. It's been great. It's shown a lot of unity with our audience out there.
I saw the one with Eddie McDonald a couple of weeks ago. That was great to see him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's great. And, we've got Twist coming on this Saturday.
Oh, good.
Live from San Francisco. And on the first night, we had Dave Sharp playing, because Dave was going to be opening for us and playing as special guest on the tour. So, everybody's been part of it now. So the fans have loved it.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to a night, I believe it was June 1983 at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. I was watching U2. Somebody said, get there early to see the opening band. And that was The Alarm. And that was the first time I seen you guys. And you've got one of those voices that inspires me, that gives me hope, that gives me strength, that gives me that little kick in the butt I need sometimes to keep going. And I was so blessed that night that I got to see you, and I got to see Bono and U2 also. So that was great. Thank you for that.
Oh, thanks for being there. And it was life-changing times for us as The Alarm. It was the first time we played in Los Angeles, because we flew into LA. But our first gig with U2 was in San Francisco, and we drove up the freeway to play with them. And and it was, I mean, we were so taken with Los Angeles. We thought we had sort of British time to get to San Francisco. We thought, 80 miles an hour, we'll get there in X amount of time. And so we went and took all our photos at like the Chinese Theatre and the Hollywood sign. And we thought, we've got a few hours to get up to San Francisco. And we realized the truck we were in had a limiter on it, so it would only go 50 miles an hour. And we were really late arriving for the first gig, and Bono and The Edge were so excited, because the reason we got the tour was because they had been on tour in America for so long, and they wanted to have a band of friends out there with them to sort of help them continue and have somebody to talk to from their own generation, somebody they could relate to and with her. And that happened to be us, and we were their friends. So we ended up on the tour, and when we pulled up for that first night, Bono and The Edge were at the stage door waiting for us, and they helped us carry our gear on stage, and that's what they were like, and I always remember the Sports Arena, because that was probably the first big arena show U2 had probably ever played in their own right on the West Coast. I mean, the San Francisco Civic was a big gig, but not as big as the Sports Arena. That was another level up. And I remember Bono, feel it, you could sense his excitement before the gig. His sense of awe was there. And he would walk around the venue and get a feel for the whole place. And you could tell he wanted to be in that environment. It was something he wanted to command. And, I remember him climbing up on the balcony.
Yes.
And dropping down into the hall, and, amazing gig, and the next 2 nights later, we actually played in the Club Lingerie.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Little teeny club.
Yeah, it was our headline show. And Bono and The Edge came to that show to see us. And The Edge didn't have ID. Well, neither of them had ID, and the venue wouldn't let him in.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, and Miles Copeland, who was the head of IRS Records at the time, manager of the police, he was there, and he was going, look, I'll buy the club, just let them in. And they let Bono in, but they wouldn't let The Edge in, and
wow.
And so he had to go back to his hotel. So,
Oh.
But yeah, great days, and thanks for bringing back that memory for me. Thanks.
What was one of your key turning points where you said to yourself, holy shit, we've made it? Is it going on tour with U2? Is it the free show at UCLA? Is it getting signed to IRS Records? When did you say, we've stepped into the real world here of music?
I think, to be honest, I would say that was when we got the call to come to America with U2. That's what every band dreams of doing, going to America. You've got all the other things like Top of the Pops and having a hit record, but to go to America in the early 80s, that was something you could only dream of. Bands didn't do it. Punk hadn't happened in America in 83, and in that sense, it hadn't really happened in the same way as it had in Britain. And so even the Clash couldn't get their records released in America at that time. So we to come over there, that was when we got on the plane. We thought, this is the kind of thing the Beatles did,
Right.
to play the Ed Sullivan Show, and that it felt so real, and it felt, because it was a tangible experience. It wasn't like going on a TV show where it's fame and you mime and then people might scream for a second. This was actually going on a tour. It meant we could play right across America, East and West coasts. We could go into the Bible Belt. We could go down to Florida. I mean, it was incredible. And we all suffered a little bit of culture shock then, because TV had a certain portrayal of America that you didn't break down until you actually went there and you met people, real people, and you saw the real America, and you thought, well, the parallels are, people are people wherever you go. If you could take them on face value, there's always something positive there. And we met so many great people that we're still friends with on that first tour, and it was incredible. And it meant, because it was a tour, meant we could own it a little bit more. It was, we were in America on our third tour when we got asked to go back and play on Top of the Pops in the UK. And we flew in, did the show, bang, and next minute our lives changed. But it was intangible experience. It was over before it had begun. And I always remember that it didn't make me feel, wow, we've made it. It was induced more of a fear factor into me, and thinking, wow, what if this is it? What if we're only ever going to be one-hit wonders? And whereas with the tour, I felt we could control how we were portrayed to the audience. We weren't at the mercy of cameras and presenters and charts. It was all about our dynamism, energy, and skill at communicating and making friends. And it felt like with a tour like that, the destiny of our lives were in our own hands.
You seem to be a person that, I'm sure in this pandemic, the shutdown, your mind probably never stops. I mean, you've got so many things that are planned ahead for you. And one thing I really want to talk about, because I really enjoyed it very much, was the album, which is going to be part of the play, Stream, Hurricane of Change. I mean, you seem to be at that point in your life where you can kind of look back at it all and reassess everything and understand why you did certain things in your life, and you just put it all out there, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Thank you very much. It's I think we talked about it early on. It's sort of that we're at a point where I've had so much experience of making music in all kinds of situations. It's only now where the experiences are really allowing you to be free enough to experience all that you've done and all that you've got to look forward to. A lot of artists don't have haven't had the sort of roller coaster life I've had. They got to the top, they've stayed there, they've played stadiums and arenas all their lives, and it almost becomes one-dimensional. Whereas my life's been multi-dimensional. It's taken me with an acoustic guitar back into folk clubs. Because I've had cancer, I've gone and sung in hospital wards and played on mountains, and that's fueled what I do in the band. It's given it a fire. It's lit a fire in the creative department, and because we're not so big that the spotlight's on us all the time, you can look back as well. You can sort of say, right, this project is about going backwards and recreating something you did in 30 years ago, and at the same time you can be thinking about your next album that's going to come out in 2021 that you hope is going to tear the walls down again. And so I think I've been blessed to have this sort of wildly fluctuating music career and musical environment to work in, and it's been really beneficial.
Did you happen to see the Springsteen on Broadway?
I saw it on Netflix. I didn't get to see it live. It was, I wasn't actually in New York when it was actually playing live. I think I got to walk past the theatre one afternoon when it was on. I took a photograph outside. But yeah, I saw it and thought it was a great show. Really, really good. I preferred it to the book personally. I thought the book, as someone who didn't like Bruce Springsteen when I first heard his records, I just couldn't get it. So couldn't relate to the lyrics and the sound. And then on one night in America, I went to see him in Philadelphia. I thought, well, I'll go and watch and see what the fuss is all about. And it absolutely blew me away. I was on the Born in the USA tour, and I loved all his stories in between the songs, and they were so real. And I think, personally, he overthought the Broadway show and his book a little bit. It felt a little bit too artistic, and like it was a massive song lyric from start to finish. But I'm glad he's done it, because I think it'd be something you can go back and look up in 10 years and maybe see it from a different perspective. But I thought it was very brave what he did.
Yeah, extremely brave and extremely honest. And I kind of got that feeling, you know, in listening to the music for Stream, Hurricane of Change, that kind of was that same sort of path, that real honesty where you look back and you look back at your parents and your upbringing and all those certain things. It all kind of blended together.
Yeah, and look, you know, I'm sure that from said exactly what I just said about Bruce Springsteen. There are going to be alarm fans out there who think the same about this. You know, that Mike's taken a few liberties here. But again, I think you can only work with what you've been given. And with Stream, the Hurricane of Change, when it was originally written, which was 30 years ago, from 1987 and 1990, it was a really dark time for the Alarms. It was, we'd had our first big successes. Our dynamic was changing. Band members were coming to live in different parts of the world. We were getting used to living in a different kind of environment than we'd grown up in. There was question marks about who should be singing and who should be creating the songs. And so there was a lot of turmoil, and I felt a little bit like my vision was blurred at that time. And a lot of the energy was keeping everyone together, keeping everyone focused, and giving up a lot of my own creativity to allow others to breathe. And so I felt that those albums, original albums, are a little bit in soft focus to me. And so to be able to go back to them and find myself in them, my true self in them again, it's been liberating. And it's sort of, there's a lot of closure come from it. And a lot of it happened by accident. It was the 30th anniversary. I was going up to play them live, and I thought, well, I've already done the remastered album. I've done the sleeve notes. We've given everyone the full background to the album. What more is there to be learnt? So I thought the only way to learn more about those songs is to play them as if I'd written them yesterday, and play them how I would play them at this point in life. I find my own self. And it was only through that process that I realized that I thought, how can I put this all together? And so I went and looked at what the first song written was, and it was only then and it dawned on me that the first song written in the whole cycle was the last one to come out in the original era. It was a New South Wales. It was that was the last song on the Change album. And so I started with that lyric as the beginning. And I thought, well, okay, who's this character I'm singing about? He's at the end of an era. He's walking home alone past the church full of mourning souls. Where's he going? I said to myself. And I looked at all the song titles, sold me down to Newtown Jericho. That's a destination. He's going there. And then, the lyrics rolled into it. I thought, wow, this is interesting. Then as I delved deeper and started piecing it all together, there's a real autobiographical story emerging from this that I didn't know was there. And once I was able to tell that story, it just felt like I'd completed the cycle of that creative process.
And you get very personal with this. And it's a lot of spoken word, not a lot of spoken word, but a spoken word in between the songs. But you talk about, and if I've interpreted it correctly, you've talked about your cancer, you've talked about losing children and the breaking up of the band. So you get really, really deep. And the nice thing is you've incorporated all these songs, which there's 2 new songs, right? The Irish Sea.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Rebecca, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Love that song.
Oh, thanks. But to be honest, they were written at the time of the original songs. It was just that it's common knowledge, because we had a bust up about the band basically didn't want to record anybody's individual songs anymore. They wanted everything to be a group composition and start working more from a jamming sort of background where you'd start with a riff or a drum beat and see what gets created in the room. And I'd never wanted to be in a band like that. My heroes were Lennon McCartney, Strummer Jones, Jagger Richard. The first record I ever bought was called Slade Alive.
Oh, okay.
I never bought it on the first journey to the record shop, because in fact, I've got it here. And
wow,
on the record you can't see it. Maybe you can there, but it says the first song says side 1, "Hear Me Calling" by Alvin Lee in brackets, and I thought, who's he? And the second song says "In Like a Shot from My Gun" in brackets Slade, and I thought, that's great. That's what I've come for, Slade. But I don't want Alvin Lee, and I don't want the guy on the third track either, John Sebastian. Who's he? So I bought Aladdin Sane by David Bowie instead. And then when I got home, when I played Aladdin Sane, it had "Let's Spend the Night Together" on it. Mm-hmm. And I saw in brackets Jagger Richards. And I thought, it's a cover version. Aha. So this Slade album, it's all Slade, but these other guys just wrote the songs.
Right.
And my aspiration from buying my first record, this one, or wanting to buy that first record, was to be the guy in brackets. I wanted my name after the songs I'd written, and to have that taken away from me was just not what I was all about. I want to be the guy that writes the songs, you know, and that's has always been my motivation, and so that's why I always felt a little bit, you know, we got into that process. We wrote some songs like "Rain in the Summertime" became a group composition, things like that. But a lot of the songs we couldn't work like that. You know, the Alarm was always a band that if Dave Sharp wrote a song like he did that I've covered on Stream, he wrote "One Step Close to Home," which is my favorite Alarm song ever written. He brings that in with lyrics, chords, and that's where the Alarm lives. The Alarm lives in the chords and the songs and the melody of the original song. The albums are a timestamp of where we were at that point. They're the arrangements of those songs, but they're not what the Alarm is. The Alarm is the song. And that's why we're allowed to go back, and we can go back and re-record our history, because it's the songs that are the continuation. That's the lifeblood that pumps through the veins of the band. And so when the songs we mentioned at the top of this question goes to Rebecca and Irish Sea, I never put them forward to the band in 1987 because I thought they don't want to do my songs. So I felt like, I'll leave those behind. And it was only now when I was looking at this story, following this character from New South Wales and seeing where he was going, I thought, hang on, I've got another set of lyrics here. Irish Sea, these are big. This is making sense of this creative period for me now, much more than it did at the time, because of all the inner turmoil we were going through. Of course, we worked out those problems and we continued. But I sometimes go back. I play Irish Sea now, and I play it live in the Stream tour before the lockdown. I'm thinking, wow, what kind of band could the Alarm been if we played that song in 1987?
Wow.
Where could we have gone? So, you know, it brings lots of questions. It makes lots of answers. But I think through the prism of time, you can listen to Stream, Hurricane of Change, but you can get a new perspective on the original recordings when you go back to them, more so than another set of sleeve notes and putting out another demo would have revealed, you know. So because the original records still exist, they're not been wiped, they're still valid, they will be played in that form in the future, but now we've also got Stream, Hurricane of Change alongside to broaden our knowledge and our understanding of this music family that is the Alarm.
How is this being released? Because there's like 40 tracks from what Ken sent us. There's like 40 tracks twice over. And I think every song that's on there, you've re-recorded, correct? None of it's the original version of the Alarm song.
No, everything's been reappraised. And I decided to play the songs as if I'd written them today. I didn't want them to be just representations of what had gone before. I wanted to see what more was inside the songs. You know, I felt at the time I was slightly distracted because there was a lot of turmoil in the band, and I was giving up a lot of myself to keep the group together. I felt like quite possibly we left some of the creativity behind on those records. We were a band that we didn't have the luxury of having the same producer every year like the Beatles did, or U2 have had with Steve Lillywhite. Every time we made an album, it was with a new producer. We had to start all over again with the creative relationships. And so I felt with Either Hurricane, something got left behind because we weren't as focused as we should be. But that's just my thought. But so with these songs, I just played them as if I'd just written them straight away. And when I came to present them in the studio with the musicians and the recording engineer and producer, I said, they said, what we're going to work on today? And I said, well, I'm going to read you a story first, and I'm going to take you to the song in New South Wales, which we're going to record, and we're going to record it in a way that carries the story. And they said, great, what are we doing after that? I said, well, I won't tell you that till we get to the end of this song. And so we recorded in New South Wales. Then I read them a second part of the story, just like the dialogue is on the record. And that took us to the second song, and on we went. So everything was recorded in the way it appears on the record. And at first I wasn't going to put the dialogue. I just thought we'd record the songs. And then George Williams, who's the producer, said, look, Mike, I love the way you're describing the intro to all these songs. It's allowing us to feel how the song should be in terms of tempo, intensity, whether it needs to be brought back here or to carry us forward. And he said, I think you should record your voice, and that should be a big part of the record. And funny enough, in September this year, we're releasing a live album called Celtic Folklore Live on Record Store Day. And it's from 1988, the original era that centres around all this song cycle. And the intro tape is Dylan Thomas speaking before we come on stage. And it would show the narrative, which I've always loved Dylan Thomas's Under Milkwood on the Caedmon label. And I've always loved that spoken word. His voice for poetry is spectacular. And so I thought that's what was in my mind that I was trying to conjure up. And I'm so glad we did it now, because it's put the whole music into a different kind of environment to allow people to listen to it and appreciate it and discover it in a whole new light of day.
So Stream comes out on June 12th, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's because of the lockdown, it's slightly open to interpretation, the release date, I would say.
Yeah.
Mainly because, to be honest, guys, when we make records in this way, especially records that look back, I like them to come out in a way that is for the fans who like buying our records, want to have it at home with them, cherish the artwork and find out the backstory. I think they need to, if they're going to buy our records, I think that's an environment that needs protecting in the music industry.
True.
And I don't like to just throw it all out there in the streaming services so everyone can just dive into whatever they want, whenever they want, play it on shuffle. I know that Alarm fans who buy our records, they go through it in detail, and they, like you, they've researched it and listened to it before and they've got questions they want to ask. And they're not diving in and diving out just the odd track they want to hear or starting at the end. So originally we were going to be releasing this record at the gigs in the physical format only. And then we'd make it available for everyone else who just likes listening casually on streaming services next year. But because of the lockdown, we might have to rethink that and maybe bring it out sooner on the digital platforms as well. But we're also considering doing an Andrea Botticelli type gig like he did, not as grand as him at the Cathedral in Milan, but we're looking for see if we can find a lockdown theatre here where we can practice some social distancing and maybe play to an empty house, but broadcast it live across the internet.
It's time for a quick break, just so we can give a big thanks to our Patreon supporters. Because of supporters, we are able to keep this podcast going. We would like to say thank you to
Mariana Williams.
Thank you, Mariana.
And Bob Kuntz.
Hey, buddy, Bob Kuntz.
Thank you guys for being a couple of our latest supporters. I want to thank all of our rock stars, our roadies and groupies on Patreon for your support. As you'll hear later on the second half of the show, one of the perks of being a Patreon supporter is that you have the opportunity to submit your questions to our upcoming guests. So please go now to our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks, ROCKS, and click on the support tab to find out how you can keep us alive, or just go to patreon.com.
Also, if you listen on iTunes, please subscribe, rate, and review us. It will only take a couple of minutes of your time. Let's get back to the second half of Mike Peters of The Alarm on Rock and Roll Confessional.
So we have a couple Patreon sponsor questions for you.
Oh.
I have one from a Ruth Oaks in Orange County. When are you and Jules going to write a book?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I've been approached about writing a book a few times, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the story's got a long way to run yet.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's so much to tell. And I think sometimes I'd like to do a book, but I think that sometimes I think the books can end up being, that people want things that you better left unsaid sometimes, I think, I don't know.
They want all the dirt,
I think so, especially, I've lived a long life and, I'm talking about a difficult time in Neil Arm's career now in 1987 on during this interview. And to go back that and forensically analyze it and write it all down, it can cause rifts again, I think, sometimes, things like that, and I think sometimes, my story might be only my view, my side of the story, and people's other sides, how they see it, is just as valid. But I think sometimes when you've gone through those periods and you've reconnected, as we all have done in the Alarm since those difficult sort of periods and other times experienced in life post the original days, then it can open those wounds up again. And sometimes I think it's better to leave them where they are, leave the ghosts of the past where it is a little bit. But I'm sure one day that I think there's a great book to be written.
Of course, it's your story.
But and I like telling the stories on stage, and I think that's why a lot of people ask, because I've done storyteller type shows where we make people laugh about the history of the band and have some great stories about the people we've met along the way. And so maybe a book, but maybe we'll do a DVD series instead.
There you go.
A whole box set.
And tell it all and show it all. I think that's kind of the way forward, but who knows?
We have another question from Janet Weiss. She says she's a big Alarm fan and a big horror fan, and she heard many years ago that your song The Stand was inspired by the Stephen King book, The Stand. She wants to know if that's true and what inspired you to write the song.
Well, hi, Janet. Yeah, absolutely. The song was inspired by the Stephen King book. A friend of mine who passed away last year, Tony Evans, he gave me the book when we moved to London in the early days of the Alarm, and said you'll really like it. And it had a great cover. The Stand was on the front. It had like a lightning strike going through it. And it was a big book, and I read it all, and I really loved it. And I like the idea of, standing up for the world. It's got the parallels with today are pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And I just like the idea of come on down and make the stand. That just popped into my head, and I wrote the song, and I took a couple of liberties with some of the characters in the book and put them in this song. At the time, I was trying to create a sort of folk rock song that maybe had parallels with some of the rap things that were going on. We grew up in a time where the Clash had discovered New York rap and were bringing Grandmaster Flash to play in London, and we're doing Magnificent Seven and things like that. And at the time, we were soaking up all these Woody Guthrie records of talking blues, and we were trying to marry those things together, and but in our own way. And so I ended up writing a sort of post-apocalyptic sort of story in a Bob Dylan Subterranean Homesick Blues sort of style, and weaving it into The Stand. And there's a sister song to it called Reason 41, which Dave Sharp wrote, that's not dissimilar. And sometimes when I play live, if I'm on a solo show, I play The Stand and I keep going into Reason 41 and use the Reason 41 lyrics in The Stand to make this epically long, almost Visions of Johanna sort of type of song. And so yeah, it's definitely. I think Stephen King has acknowledged it, but doesn't prefer to say anything decent about it. I think we beat him to it,
This is a copy. I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yeah, Man in the Camo Jacket.
From Record Store Day that CW picked up. And I love the liner notes that you start off with. You say, I was blessed with cancer in 1995, and it completely changed my life. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they were blessed with cancer. You've handled that nobly.
Oh, well, thank you. But it's, look, I was plunged into my cancer experience on the way to a gig. It was in 1995. And it's controversial to say blessed with cancer because I can only say that in hindsight. But I was on my way to a show with my brother and my wife when I was asked to go to hospital for a blood test on the way because I'd found a lump in my collarbone. And the doctor sat me down and said, after this blood test, and I thought nothing of it. The nurse said, go in and see him. And then he handed me the sheet of paper that said, we've got to talk about cancer written all over it. And I was just in shock. And at that time, as anyone who's heard those words applied to them will tell you, and I didn't know what to do. And I can't remember coming out of the hospital pretty much. And anyway, sort of coming out of this daze at the house, and my brother was picking up the phone, and I said, who are you calling? Because I'm phoning the venue to cancel it. I said, no, I can't wait till tomorrow and just think about all the horrendous things that could happen. I've got to occupy my time. Let's go and play the show. And so I went and played the show, and I was so glad I did, because it created the mindset right there and then that I will keep moving through this no matter what comes. And so then the next day I was told to have a bone marrow transplant, cancel the American tour. And I said, I can't possibly do that. I've got to do the tour. Then you can do whatever you like with me, but I've got to see out the diary. So, and because I was diagnosed with cancer, I've all met incredible people that I would have, people clapping for the carers on Thursday night in the UK. Well, I've been doing that all my life, ever since I was diagnosed and cared for by the NHS, who've saved my life, changed my life, revolutionized it, give me a life to live. And so I've always been grateful for that. And that's why I say blessed with cancer, because I would never experience any of that if cancer hadn't come into my life and made me appreciate every single moment as a gift.
And I love the fact that you just give back so much, strength to people that have the disease. Hey, carry on. It's not the end, because you were diagnosed again. You got to get.
Yeah, it comes back round. Yeah. And it was the second time it was out of the blue, but it was, I was in a very bad way, and I couldn't this time not have the treatment. So, but again, I saw incredible stories, I saw incredibly inspiring people learning to live with the diseases. So great I've got an amazing doctor in Wales who pioneered ways for me to still be able to play music and have cancer treatment, selfless acts of people going beyond the call of duty just to keep someone like myself going. And it just gave me so much fuel for life, made me want to live. And I do think that, our charity is called Love, Hope, Strength. I think you need those three. They're intangibles, really. You can't buy love, hope, and strength.
Right.
They're things that you create, you earn from people, you love from people, you give freely, and the more you give, the more you get back. It's simple. The more love you give, the more love you get. The more strength you can produce, the more strength you get back. The more hope you can have, the more hope you spread, the more it comes back your way. And that's and drugs and all the treatments in the world can't give you what those three things can give you as an individual. And if you can create more love, hope, and strength in your life, then you've got a chance. It will only make your drugs or your treatment regime better. Not everyone's going to survive, but if you've got love, hope, and strength to cling to, you might get one more day. You might get one more chance to see your children. You might get one more opportunity to give your wife a hug and a kiss, or your parents say goodbye, all those things. And one day is not to be taken for granted. It is a gift worth all the wealth in the world.
Beautifully said.
Absolutely.
So we're going to kind of wind down here, Mike, but one of the things we do is we have what we call the speed round. So we're going to ask you a bunch of questions real quick.
I'm not good at fast answers, as you can probably tell.
Well, no, you're good at fast answers. You're not good at short answers. So what was your very first concert you went to?
Black Sabbath in Birmingham Odeon on the Sabotage tour.
Whew. Who would you want to meet that you've never met?
Who would I want to meet that I've never met? That's a very interesting question. I've met most of the people. I'd like to meet my granddad again. My William Hugh Frank Jones, he's the guy that had the massive he was born 1900. He survived the First World War as a teenager, and he was a musician. He passed on a lot of things to me, and I miss him a lot, and I'd like to meet him again.
Would you describe yourself as religious or spiritual?
Spiritual.
When did you discover rock and roll?
I'm still discovering it every single day.
Yeah.
But well, for me, I was at real high school in the 70s, and the girls I used to like football, Manchester United, and I hated music. I thought that was for girls and nothing to do with boys and all this stuff. And then one day these girls were putting a poster up in real high school, and it had some balleric sort of shoes. And then it was meant to be a life-size poster. So the next part would come the following week. A week later, you saw the knees, and you saw, well, this guy's wearing flares. Who's he? Then you saw this purple jacket with a guitar that was shaped like an arrow, like a flying V, as I later come to know. And then the fourth week, and every week the girls were flocking around this poster. The fourth week, the head arrived, and it was Mark Bolan from T-Rex.
Wow.
Well, forget the footballers. I want to be like him.
Yeah.
Because the girls like him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Do you have a very special Spinal Tap moment in your career or your life? Something that's been so crazy that happened on stage, other than the fact that you left the band on stage, but anything else we haven't heard about?
Well, when Spinal Tap came out as a film, it was obviously the talk of rock and roll. And we had an Ian as a manager. They had a Nigel and Dave in the band. So did we. The agent was based on our agent from New York, Barbara Skydell, I do believe. So I couldn't watch it. But the funniest part happened was when it played on British television, my dad's brother, my Uncle Tony, watched it on TV in Britain and phoned my dad halfway through the show and said, "Bob Peters, your son, this band, there's this film on this band on TV. They're terrible. They're nowhere near as good as your son's band." We thought it was a real documentary.
then it was done properly.
The first time I saw it, it was like, hey, I know these people. Don't make fun of them,
So I couldn't watch it because I knew half of them in the film.
I've got to ask you about this album that you signed to CW, Spirit of 76. What is it? 2CWB Woky? WOKY? Wonky? Wokey?
Oh, Be Lucky.
Oh, Be Lucky.
Be Lucky.
For years, I've been trying to find out what Wokey means.
He looks like a Wookie.
I'm not very good at short answers.
Got it.
Not very good at handwriting.
I see the lucky now. That makes total sense.
Be Lucky.
Oh, well, I am. We're lucky enough to speak with you.
And to...
Really, when was that signed, CW?
That came out in...
I think you were probably...
86.
85.
He used to work at Rockline. You remember doing the show Rockline?
Excellent. Oh, Rockline. Yeah, I love... The Rockline was amazing.
Yeah.
Some great show.
And then we both worked at KLOS for years and years, for decades. And part of that... that concert was just amazing at UCLA. I can't wait to see the new stuff on tour, so I hope it's sooner than later.
Yeah, we're hoping that, we've still technically got some dates in July in California. So obviously we're waiting to see what the guidelines come out from the state and the country officials. Same here in the UK. Maybe we have to contend with an isolation if we go to America to come back here. So we'll see, but technically those dates are still in the diary. So hopefully we can come out and play those shows. We've just announced a very big British tour at this week's Big Night In that we have on our internet show. And we're basically trying to come out of the blocks with everybody. As soon as the doors to venues open, we want to be the first to be able to play in them. And we're talking with all the promoters, trying to be optimistic. And so, we're quite lucky that the Alarm's a very adaptable band. We can downsize it to an acoustic guitar and it's still what the Alarm's all about. Yeah. We can upscale it all the way to the band. So we can work in any environment, and we're trying to make all these shows without risk for everybody, so we can help the music venues, the music fans, the promoters, the agents all get up and running as soon as possible. And that's our aim. And the tour's called New Standards.
That's great.
Love
okay,
it.
well, we'll look forward to. We had tickets to the April show here at UCLA, but obviously,
Well, that's still going to happen. You know, that's definitely still going to happen. We've been in contact with UCLA, and they're still not ready to be able to release dates for hold or to know what the guidelines are. We've just been doing some interviews with some music business executives here who help book alarm shows and run some of the venues, and engage an opinion from them about how they think the venues will be in lockdown, post-lockdown. And a lot of people see the promoters are still working on the fact that capacities will stay the same, but procedures like lining up, going for drinks, that kind of thing. People maybe wear face masks when they come in or gloves, and hand washing. So I think gigs will change, but I think the experience will still be great and valid, and everyone will still want to come to gigs, and we still want to play them.
Yeah,
excellent,
great.
Thank you so much for your time.
Can't wait to see UCLA. Thank you both.
Best of luck to you, and continued good health to you and Jules and your little boys.
And thank you. And you stay safe, and all the listeners and viewers, stay safe, everybody. And we'll see you post-lockdown when all is good and the way it should be.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
What an inspirational guy. I love Mike Peters of The Alarm. And
so there we go. A nice little ditty with Mike Peters of The Alarm. I love him. He's been one of those people that has always been accessible for us and doing promotions and stuff when we were at the radio station. And I remember we were big supporters of the big UCLA free concert that MTV did. Yeah, he's just a great guy and a hardworking guy, and never, ever stops working. Like, I'm sure the minute we were done, he's like either onto another interview or he's back up to writing another song or whatever. So
planning the next phase. So inspirational.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times cancer can beat people down, because it takes a toll on your body, on mentally, and then the people around you also, and so it's always important to keep thinking that positive thing. And I just love the fact that he just exudes positivity.
Yeah. And his wife, Jules, went through breast cancer after Mike had it twice.
Exactly.
So talk about a real together family. He and Jules and the two boys. So
our special thanks to Mike Peters for Zooming with us all the way from his home in Wales. God, it's so pretty there. Mike and The Alarm. You can follow them on Twitter at The Alarm, Instagram The Alarm, Facebook The Official Alarm, and his website is thealarm.com.
Don't forget the new album, Stream, Hurricane of Change. There's Act 1 and Act 2, but I believe they're sold together now. You can find those new albums at thealarm.com. And The Alarm Celtic Folklore Live releases on Record Store Day, September 26th. So check your local record store, because it's about the only place you're going to be able to find it.
And keep an eye out on the Alarm website for upcoming tour dates. Mike and the band are always amazing live.
Check out our show notes under each show title on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks. There you'll find links to videos and other subjects that were brought up in today's show.
Our special thanks today to Ken Phillips.
Thank you, Ken, very much.
For coordinating the interview. We appreciate it. And we have some really great shows coming up in the future.
And if you would like to help us, which we would much appreciate, there's a few different ways. Like us, share us, follow us on Facebook, share our posts with your friends, your other rock and roll friends, rate us and write a review on iTunes, make a small pledge on Patreon, and just tell your good friends or your enemies, I don't really care, to listen to us. We appreciate everyone's help.
Keep rocking, everybody.
Thanks.
Keep the fist.
All right.